ImRecruitable gives you the competitive edge to 10x your chances of being recruited. We connect you with every college and coach to help maximize your exposure to receive the scholarship you desire. Click the link below and sign up for your free account at imrecruitable.com today. Here at ImRecruitable, we are looking for student athletes to recruit to schools. And next up, we have Colorado Mesa University from Grand Junction, Colorado, the head men's and women's tennis coach, Dan MacDonald. They're in the Pacific West Conference, and they're in NCAA Division II. Dan, how's everything going today?
Great, Eric. Thanks for having me on. Really good to see you again, buddy. I know it's been a few years, but yeah, things are going well here. Really excited about the upcoming spring season. We had a pretty successful fall, and we're kind of in that recruiting mode right now. So, I'm just another typical season, getting ready for the holidays with the family and all that good stuff.
So it's definitely been a while. I was at a college whenever you were still at, I guess it was Mesa State at the time, and now they've changed it to Colorado Mesa University. Definitely, I loved going to Grand Junction, Colorado. I thought it was a wonderful, neat little town, and I just commend you on your history there at Colorado Mesa University. You've done a wonderful job with what resources you might or might not have had. But, well, I'd like to ask you our first question here on this podcast.
Okay.
Dan, what do you look for in a possible student recruit?
Well, we look for a few things, but, we look for obviously strong tennis players, strong academic players. I like to see good time management skills, team players. A lot with us, we look for kids that have strong academics, whether they're an American player or an international player, because we can lump together different packages. We're not a fully funded Division II program. We probably don't have time to go into that. But we do have athletic scholarships, but we're limited. So we like to see kids that, have around at least a 2.5 GPA. If not, obviously we'd like better. But if they have a 2.5 to 3.0, American student will qualify for multiple waivers, whether they live in California, Arizona. We have what we call a Western Undergraduate Exchange Program. We have mountain and plain states where if a kid has a 2.5 or above, he will get in-state tuition plus half. That's not a full waiver, but that gets it down. And then if they have above that, like a 3.5, top 5% of their class, do well on the SAT or ACT, then they'll qualify for additional academic money as well as that in-state plus a half. So a lot of times for kids we recruited, American kids, if we can get them down or below what it costs for them to go to an in-state school wherever they're from, or to come to our university in Grand Junction, Colorado, to get them down cost, the parents are looking for that. Hey, my kid's been playing tennis and training, and also he has good academics, and we like your academics that you have there. So we look for that. With international players, about, I think 7-8 years ago, my university came up with an international academic merit scholarship, where if we take let's say the young man or young woman's from Germany, we get their transcripts, we translate that into a 3.0 American GPA, or if they score, I think like a 950 on the SAT, then they will qualify for $9,000 academic money for the year, $4,500 per semester. So that's dropping their costs down. And, and then these kids, we do have athletic scholarships. I don't want to, say we don't, but we're limited. So we're looking for a combination of things when we recruit a player. I like kids also that maybe played multiple sports as a kid until a certain age, and they decide, hey, tennis is my avenue, maybe to play college tennis. Sometimes kids that play tennis started at 8, 10, they get burned out. I like kids that maybe played basketball or a team sport, soccer, whatever. So they have that team camaraderie. Eric, you were a coach for a long time. You need that team spirit in college because it's a team sport, in my opinion. It's still somewhat individual. But we like the player that's kind of multi-athletic. The athleticism in college tennis, as you know, Eric, it's off the charts compared. I'm 57 years old. The way we played tennis when I was playing college tennis is different. These kids, their defensive skills are off the charts. We're looking for a lot of kids that they play tournaments, but sometimes I won't say I dislike when they specialize so early, but I like to see that they played a team sport for a while. And most kids do. Eric, you probably played multiple sports when you were a kid. I did. That builds good team camaraderie. It teaches you different muscle training, athleticism. Could go on for a long time with this, but hopefully that kind of makes sense. But we have different, we like to put together good academic players with some partial tennis scholarships if we can. I have a few walk-ons that are coming here because they got a lot of academic money. And I said, hey, if you can prove to me you're a top 6 men's or women's player, then we might find you some tennis scholarship money.
Well, that's unique about Division II. Everybody kind of fluffs it off as the last resort almost. It's like, well, we want to go Division I or Division III. They've got great universities. Well, Colorado Mesa University is just as good of a school as basically anywhere else. You can categorize some programs, but I tell you, you have a unique situation. I did kind of the same thing when I was at Division II. You kind of get an American kid who's interested, is a pretty strong player, but I combined with a what they call a Pell Grant, and then I combined that athletic scholarship, and she basically got a full ride at a Division II school. That was unheard of, and it's just really because of what the parents were telling me their situation was to begin with. So I know.
Yeah, the Pell Grant, I use that too. I'm glad you mentioned that, Eric. I forgot about that aspect, and we've used that too.
Yeah, you're a coach who has to use a little bit of sneakiness about you about how you figure out things.
You got to get somewhat creative.
And she went through, and everything's fine. And she had 3 other sisters that basically probably did the same exact thing. So, as a Division II coach, you have to be a little creative. I totally get that. Yeah. Totally get that, Dan. So,
we like players that are creative too, right, Eric? Because they can't always overpower a player or
anybody who's coachable. You're going to be willing to at least listen to them and what they have to tell you before you recruit them. So, hey, next question up is as a head coach in the NCAA Division II level, what is your take or philosophy on the UTR or the Universal Tennis Rating System for college tennis?
Yeah, the UTR, I think it's a unique type of thing. I think it's definitely helped with recruiting. It's got kids to play more tournaments. Is it replacing the USTA junior circuit, whether you're from California, Texas, Missouri, Oklahoma, that region, the East Coast, Florida? I don't think it'll ever take over that. I think it does give coaches a gauge. The idea was to make some type of a worldwide universal rating system for tennis players because we are one of the few sports that are international. I guess soccer would probably be the most, or as they call it, football. It's probably the most international sport. Tennis is probably second, maybe golf. Anyways, track and field, blah, blah, blah. But, it's got its place. But I think, like you mentioned earlier, sometimes kids don't have access to UTR, or their families don't have the money for that young man or young woman to travel and play UTR tournaments. When COVID hit, everything got shut down. So that created some awkwardness with tournaments again. Tennis got up and running pretty quick because we're a non-COVID sport, I guess. We're not wrestling each other. But so to me, it's definitely had its place. I like to look at videos of match play as well as UTR, and I tell the young man or woman, hey, that guy you hit against or that young woman you're hitting against, they look like she's just leaving the ball in the middle of the court. We want some really good action. We want a quick warm up. You know what I mean, Coach Eric. You've been through that, so you use multiple things. I think the UTR is good. We've sponsored some UTR tournaments here at Colorado Mesa. We've got college players coming. We had some Division I players come. We had some juniors come. My players played in it. Another university sent some players over. Definitely has its place. And whether it's always accurate, I just don't like it when I see a kid, I beat this kid, and then for some reason they default at the next round because it really shows all your results. So is that kid trying to dodge a higher or lower UTR? Or so again, kind of like the junior system. You've done this for a long time or been in the business. It definitely has its place. I guess I'm kind of rambling on. I like it. It's not the end all of all recruiting, though.
Sure.
Multiple things go, but I think it's definitely helped. It gives you sort of a gauge of what the young man or young woman has been doing. So I think it has its place.
Yeah, I've done this enough, and as a recruiting coach for ImRecruitable now, I've kind of gone through the UTR system, and I have a way of looking at your university and your rosters and a lot of other people. And then you give me a name, I can put it in, and I can see when they've played. I think that's really good. It kind of keeps student athletes on point if they do want to be accepted by a coach like yourself. Yeah. That is someone who, now maybe they're higher UTR and they played a lot of tournaments and they're not so coachable, but if they have been, you can kind of tell that they're serious about what they're doing. And that's always what you want in a student athlete. You don't want, every coach is competitive. They want to have the best team that they can possibly have. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter what color they are. It doesn't matter where they're from. Exactly. I was the same way. I tried to have, a portion of international students. Sometimes I had a little bit more, but I also was very interested in Americans. Right. And, but at the same time, it's whether Americans were serious enough to get out and play those tournaments so that UTR could improve. And I will say one thing about the UTR, in my personal opinion, every time that I've seen something like the level of the UTR player, they tend to not win against a player that's ranked a little bit higher than them in the UTR scoring system. There's been a few exceptions, but I think maybe 9 out of 10 times, the thing is pretty accurate on what they're doing.
It is. I would agree with that.
You might get an 11.0 UTR male that beats an 11.5 every once in a while. I've seen a few of those, but that's the 1 out of 10. Otherwise it's pretty accurate to me. And it's just kind of another resource, like you said, Dan.
I think it's helpful for the recruit. Yeah. You can go on and check out my school and see my range. Like, a young man or young woman, you can go to whatever university, and if you're smart enough to figure out, well, you know what, hey, this team, my range is in here. On Coach MacDonald's team, have guys, I think, from 9.5 to close to 11 or 10.8. I'm a 8.5. I'm not going to go there. Or I'm 11.5. I probably can do better than that program. So I think it helps the recruit if he knows or she knows, or the recruiting service is like, hey, you're not University of Stanford level. Let's be honest, but hey, here's some schools. And I've talked to recruits, and you probably did too, Eric. Yeah. This kid fits in your range. So I think it's valuable for the coach and the recruit.
Well, I think whenever I was coaching, the UTR wasn't really in play. I think it came out maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, but I was more guesstimating. I was looking at regional and in-state, like in the state of in Australia, where if you have a number 2 guy from Wales or from Victoria, that you've probably dealing with a pretty good player. Yeah. And that's another thing for me in recruiting, is that it was more about developing relationships with people like recruiting coaches of ImRecruitable, or any recruiting coaches for other programs, even across the world. I had relationships with them that if I did what I said I was going to do with the first recruit they handed me, then they would send me somebody else that maybe is a little stronger. I mean, that happened quite a bit for me.
Yeah, that established a great relationship for you and the recruiting service.
And that's what we want to try to develop here at ImRecruitable. It's not just about the student athletes; it's about the coaches kind of figuring out what we have to offer for them. And it's just a service that just helps everybody come together and communicate. And I think that's the main thing. Is, like
you say, Eric, you're building relationship with young people. Most of us are in this because we enjoy working with young men and women.
Sure.
I tell some of my recruits to call my players, past or present, and get it, because I can look at myself one way, but there's another player see me that way. You and I have ups and downs. We were highly competitive with each other.
Sure.
So I give that also to my recruits. I'm like, hey, I don't have a problem if you want to talk to somebody on my team, or academics. We help kids. Hey, well, I'll set you up with an engineering professor here, the nursing professor, whatever you like. So it, like you say, you're building relationships with these young people and other coaches across the country, whether it's United States, Australia, Germany, and they want to send kids to a positive place, not just for winning and losing, but because hardly any players are going pro at Division II.
Yeah, the degree is the most
Yes.
important thing. My thing was education, first family, second family, and the second family is the tennis program,
Exactly.
the tennis team, and the coach. And
I love the NCAA basketball tournament, March Madness, because they have a thing. 98% of us are going pro in our degree, not our sport. 2% are going pro in sports out of the whole realm of NCAA sports. To me, I've used that recruiting to people like, your son says or she wants to play professional tennis. Not here to say you can't, but be realistic and have something to fall back on. It's just harder and harder to become a professional women's or men's tennis player. I'm not saying it's undoable at Division II, but you're starting to see more college players starting to make it in the pro ranks, but most of them are probably Division I.
Definitely. Last question for you, Dan. What role should a parent have with their child to have the best chance to be recruited at Colorado Mesa University or other Division II schools?
That's can be somewhat of a tricky question, right, Eric, as an ex-coach? I like parents that are involved, but I want their young, male or female, their child, to be kind of leading the way, or the parent, I get it, wants to be involved. My daughter or son is going to go to your university, maybe. What do you have to offer? But I want the student athlete that's I'm recruiting or has contacted me or I've contacted them to be engaged. Sometimes you have some hands-on parents, and that's okay, as long as they're realistic and their child wants to play college tennis. And Eric, sometimes you get ex-parents that as an ex-Division I player, ex-Division II player. Well, that's great, and maybe they coach their child. And that's another great thing. I don't shy away from parents that coach. I just hope they're realistic, that their child wants to play college tennis. They're not, they've done some research on my university once we contacted, which I make very easy for them. So I think the parent plays a role. I like it when they ask about academics, what kind of, do you have scholarships, this, that. So as long as they're informed, they're realistic, and they're not too hands-on, I'll be honest, because, their child is getting ready to become a young man or a young woman. They're not, they're not 17 anymore. Maybe they are. They'll probably turn 18, but, they got to let go at some point. But I value input from parents, but I think at some point, most of the time, I don't know how it was with you, you having a parent involved, somebody, hey, it's up to my son or daughter, so I value their input. I just hope that they at some point realize it's, about their child experienced, and that child has to make this decision. I sometimes ask parents, hey, is your child involved in your community? Not just in tennis. Do they do things outside of tennis? Are they helping with Salvation Army or some type of cause, whatever. Do these people have skills besides tennis? Are they people persons? Are they doing things in their community? So, and most of the parents are good, doing this after 18 years. I've had a couple disagreements, and that's okay. I always tell the mom or the dad, hey, we can agree to disagree on certain things, because maybe you don't see my perspective and maybe I don't see your perspective, but so they're going to be involved. So you got to deal with it. And sometimes they're not, but for the most part, I'd say 95% of the time, the parents will at some point contact you or email you or do something. If not, that's okay too, because maybe they feel like their child is old enough or mature enough or has the experience to make these decisions on their own.
I was in situations where I was building programs. I mean, you built a program over, like you say, the past 18 years. I'm sure in the first couple years, you had your ups and downs with many different things, wanting to make sure that it goes a certain way. I've had a couple times where I was, parents call me up and I really wasn't supposed to talk with them, but it's just one of those things where eventually I didn't have very many parents talking to me. I was focusing directly on the student athlete, and that seemed to work because most of the time they were probably 18, 19, 20 years old by that time, sometimes a transfer or something. But Definitely some of the students I had didn't have parents anymore. Their parents had passed. So, you got different situations as a college coach like yourself that you have to deal with. And, a lot of times you're a mentor to that person.
Yes. Good point, Eric. That's a great point. You are mentoring these people. And if you want to get into college coaching, whether it's tennis, baseball, whatever, whether you realize it or not, you're a mentor. Charles Barkley had that famous saying in the 1990s, "I'm not a mentor." Well, okay. And I love Charles Barkley. Don't get me wrong. But that's a different situation. He's a professional athlete. He wasn't coaching young men and women to be adults. So I think
he's not much of a golfer, but he's got a crazy looking golf swing.
I wish he'd take up tennis, man. I want to see the guy play tennis. Clyde Drexler was a really good tennis player.
Barkley would pass out in the first 5 minutes playing tennis. I think, those are big guys, actually really big guys. They're much bigger than, I've seen JJ Watt here in Scottsdale.
Okay.
And he is much bigger than you think he is, man. These guys are 6'5", 300 pounds. And
he's so athletic too.
It's just unbelievable what you see sometimes with some of these professionals. But, dealing with young student athletes was one of my passions. I think that's why I'm back with ImRecruitable just as a recruiting coach. I've told the owners of ImRecruitable that I'm just willing to do whatever they need. And even if it's promotion or speaking with wonderful guys like yourself that's been in the trenches for years. And definitely, this has been an enjoyable experience for me to come back and listen to my good buddy. And I always thought you were a buddy back then too, Dan. I
know we were
always competitive.
Your men's team. I don't know if I ever beat your men's team. I can't remember. But, anyways,
your women were always stronger than mine. That's for definitely sure. But
for the most part, you had that one Russian girl. I think you had that Russian girl, man. She was pretty good. Or was that after you left? And
oh no, that was that was a funny thing. The girl that I was mentioning about getting her the Pell Grant and the scholarship, that was her best friend. And she came as a best friend benefit, and I wasn't there anymore.
Was that with Jair, who played?
Yeah, I had gone to the University of Nevada that very year, and I think her name was Tessa, or I can't quite remember her name, but she was the friend of the girl from Las Vegas that I recruited.
Okay.
I mean, such a good friend that she followed her friend to Western New Mexico University. So, and that probably, I heard from the assistant at the time, girl from New Mexico saying, that girl's good. She could have played for us. And I'm like, I'd never seen her play. I didn't know anything about her. She just wanted to show up and play. Right. And at the time we didn't have UTR, and so I feel that if I'd have saw her, I would have been drooling almost if I saw her UTR score. So it's just one of those things. I'm sure, Dan, you've had a few of those times, or even at Division II. And I'm not really putting Division II down. I think Division II is a definite option for people that are looking for any athletics that they're looking for, because Division I is what it is. Division III is another beast that I'm learning. That they don't even need to clear the NCAA. So Division I and Division II are the ones that are more.
Division III, you don't have to have eligibility center number.
Not really. No, that's kind of crazy. But I guess that, they're looking for higher academics. Maybe that's a difference I've seen. But Division II is really unique, and as you've been explaining to us, just a wonderful setup for the right person. And Colorado Mesa University is a wonderful place. Like I've said in the beginning, Grand Junction University, or Grand Junction, Colorado is, I think, one of the most unique towns in Colorado that I've ever been to. And it's up there near the Utah border, where you can, there's all kinds of outdoor activities and different things that I think is wonderful about Grand.
We've been on Jeopardy trivia a few times. I'll never forget, Eric. I don't know if you knew, I played here for 2 years. I played at Cali County for 2 years, and then came to Mesa State, which is now Colorado Mesa University. I was home. My dad and I used to like to watch Jeopardy together for the holidays, and the question came up: name the city where the two rivers meet in Colorado, or something like that. My dad
Yeah.
looks at me, he goes, "Hey man, do you know the answer?" I said, Grand Junction? That's why we're called Grand Junction. The
Yeah.
two largest rivers meet here, the Colorado and the Gunnison. Amazing place to live. People have asked me why I didn't leave. Love it.
Yeah.
Outdoor activities, a ski resort an hour away. We do not get a lot of snow in Grand Junction, but we do.
Yeah.
Mountain biking, river rafting, hiking, phenomenal place I use that when I recruit kids. But we do get snow occasionally, but we're kind of a high desert. When I say that, people are like, Colorado's a high desert. I go, well, when you leave the mountains, it leads usually into a desert.
Yes.
That's my study of topography or whatever that is. But yeah, great place to live. Love it. I think so many places where people live, there's great things to do, whether it's Grand Junction, Colorado, Silver City, New Mexico, metropolitan state of Denver. Obviously, you're looking for kids that, I don't like to, I'll never forget when I was at Cali County, my coach recruited this kid from, I can't think of the big city, Johannesburg. And that was back in the mid 1980s. Yeah. And there was no internet. The kid came to Ark City, Kansas and thought it was a city. He was like in culture shock. And me and my buddy from Australia were like, dude, we're only like an hour away from Wichita, but so nowadays things are different. And my coach did not trick that young man to coming. He just thought, I thought the name Ark City meant city. It was not a city. It was a town of like 10,000 people. Grand Junction's about 120,000 people. But anyways, so I'm off the thing where some people say, oh, well, Division II, they're usually in these small towns or this or that. I'm like, well, some major universities are in small towns too. They're college towns.
Sure.
The Grand Junction Colorado Mesa's become the center of our city. It's the Hyatt. We have the most employees now here, but there's a big hospital here. We pass them. So again, I think sometimes you want to be honest as a coach with a kid. Hey, but sometimes I feel like kids use a cop-out, especially some American kids. Sure. That's why you're seeing more and more international players in Division II and even Division I. Some American kids, I don't want to go to that small town or this or that or that.
Well, especially women's programs, right? I mean, sometimes it's hard for you to find women that want to compete and you go international. I mean, that's what I had to do. And even though I didn't have much money to do it, but you say small towns, I mean, look at Athens, Georgia. Yeah. The University of Georgia. I don't think Athens is any bigger than Grand Junction, Colorado. I think it's about the same population, but the differences, I guess, in location, maybe versus the United States, obviously high desert versus, Georgia itself is pretty
sea level.
Yeah, pretty compact state. But, I think it's just everybody's perspective needs to be adjusted a little bit for Division II because, I went and played for Western New Mexico. I was a walk-on. But, Western Mexico was a wonderful little town. I mean, it's way smaller than Grand Junction, about 10,000, 12,000 people. I don't know how many there are now, and it just,
Great Mexican food there, though. Remember that? You told me to go to that Mexican restaurant downtown. Hey, buddy, that was great.
At least
authentic Mexican food, I think.
My favorite thing to eat is green chili and avocado. So that's what I learned it in college. So, but definitely, Dan, it's been wonderful talking with you here at ImRecruitable. We're going to do anything we can to help represent your program and your university and what you do at Colorado Mesa University in Grand Junction, Colorado. It's been wonderful getting all of the insights and your knowledge of over 18 years of being a head coach for both men's and women's programs. So I commend you on what you're doing and definitely look forward to seeing how your programs do in the future.
Well, I appreciate your time and reaching out to me, Eric. This is another thing I always tell my young people. It pays to be nice to people, even if you're competitive with them. You step between the lines. We want you to be competitive. Doesn't mean you have to be a jerk afterwards or during, because in life, people, you make contacts. You and I, we didn't, we never had bad falling outs, but we lost our way, but it came back around. I always tell kids, you never know when it's going to pay off just to be nice or do a good job. Anyways.
Well, I think for me, I was more angry about the drive back home from Grand Junction on the bus.
Same for me going from Silver City, buddy. No.
Yeah, I think that was the students didn't understand. It's like, dude, you know how many miles and hours I'm going to have to drive after this? But going through Grand Junction, I went several different ways. I went through Utah, and then I came back down through Montrose, Colorado. That was a treacherous entail there for a couple of hours. But once I got down to Alamosa, I was fine. But so this is the life and times of a college coach. I don't really care where you're at, what division you're from. Sometimes all divisions have to deal with this, including NAIA. But
I really appreciate you guys having me on ImRecruitable. And I hope there's a way that we can get tennis. At some point, I'd love to come back on, talk about what's going on in the world of just college tennis in general. Why are not more American kids playing college tennis? Why is tennis getting cut? But that's a whole nother subject. And I know you're a busy man, Eric, but I really appreciate you having me on. It's been really fun to see your face again and interact like this. Really enjoyed it, sir. Thank you so much.
Well, we've had Dan MacDonald, the head coach from men's and women's tennis at Colorado Mesa University in Grand Junction, Colorado. And it's a wonderful time with Dan. Thank you, Dan, for coming on, and we hope to see you soon.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Do you want to play college sports? Are you trying to get recruited? Create your free profile. Target your schools. Get instant access to college coaches. View coach activity and more. Get discovered now. ImRecruitable.